Okay, so I didn't actually do a read yesterday, even though that was my intent. I ended up kind of just talking, so I'm going to do a read now. I don't have anything in mind to talk about, so we're just going to let the cards fall where they may, and I am just going to read from whatever the energies are right now. Okay. The first card out is the Queen of Cups in the upright. Okay. Give me some clarification for the Queen of Cups. Clarification for the Queen of Cups. Any more clarification for the Queen of Cups? Thank you. Any more? One more time. One more time. Any more clarification? One card at a time. Okay, so we have the Three of Wands in the upright and the King of Pentacles in the upright. I think I've only gotten this card one other time. Okay, so I'm going to start here and then we will continue forward. The Queen of Cups in the upright. A depiction of feeling comfortable in oneself to be able to like protect oneself emotionally, mentally, to kind of be stable within one's own means. It's an inward confidence. It isn't the external confidence that the King of Cups tends to have of knowing that you can also do all of these things emotionally, but it is this confidence that for yourself you are completely cared for, and for yourself you can trust yourself, and you have all of your thoughts and emotions in alignment with your highest self in order to mostly just be able to be comfortable. So then we move down into the Three of Wands and the King of Pentacles. So the King of Pentacles first is a comfortability and confidence with one's own material wealth, one's own material abundance. There's, he has these bowls on his throne, and it's this depiction of being stubborn, but because one is grounded, very fruitful. He has grapes all over his robe. So, completely contented and satisfied with one's own means and able to conduct oneself comfortably. There's no concern of, there's no poverty mindset. There's no concern as to, how one is going to care for themselves monetarily or materialistically. Also, the sense of having one's own kingdom out of his wealth is also the wealth of all of those in his circle, right? So where the Queen of Cups is very depictive of being confident in one's own self, the King of Pentacles is very depictive of being comfortable with one's own environment as well. The Three of Wands is opportunistic, but it's also very introspective. It's a bit uncertain. It's kind of looking out into the wide world and recognizing that you have all of these options. And even kind of knowing what direction you, well, knowing what direction you came from for sure, and kind of even having an idea of what direction you'd like to head, but seeing this wide expanse of opportunity in that there's these bits of uncertainty behind you still. You see them as opportunity, but it's still this wave of not fear, but trepidation. The two wands aren't, I guess these ones are more grounded. They're grounded, but he's standing and holding on to the one for a sense of balance while he's considering moving out, into something greater. It's funny because, like, if I'm taking this personally, how I'm reading this is that the sort of conflict that comes up with embracing one's self, one's ultimate goals, but like really looking inward and really looking at oneself and seeing what is it that's going to satisfy me. Like, I'm not doing this for other people. I'm doing this so that I can come to a point of comfortability and contentment within myself. And then it'll be out of that my abundance will flow and be able to flow into my kingdom, the things that I create and the people that I care for. But it first has to come through me. The utmost importance is me being comfortable in myself and confident in myself and being able to do these things for myself, knowing that if I care for myself, I'm also killing. If I care for myself, see, that's so weird because it comes out unintentionally, right? In my head, I'm aware, I've learned over time that caring for myself also means caring for the world at large. I'm a part of the world at large. When I am properly cared for, then I can trust that other things are also properly cared for, because if I'm in alignment, then everything that I'm doing is falling into alignment with the rest of the world, right? But the killing, like there's this subconscious fear that it's pure selfishness, or that caring for myself is at the compromise of caring for others somehow. And if I'm called to care for others, then how can that be? And how could I do that? And how can I trust that if I'm caring for myself, that I'm doing the right thing? Like I said, I've already learned, and I'm now looking to apply this concept that, like, if I care for myself, I am caring for the world. And that there is a balance there. The things that I am called to truly in this divine order are things that not only care for me and benefit me and give me the sense of contentment, but it's from out of that this abundance into being able to care for everyone else comes. And so, yeah, that's where we're at. I mean, I don't necessarily want to get too terribly personal. What I've been, again, it don't matter. What I've been looking towards in my life is, I've been like this, where I've been holding on to this one aspect of what I know of myself and kind of clinging to that for a sense of stability while considering all of these other opportunities. And when I've kept my comfort and not my comfort, but like my confidence, my stability, my sense of stability, I don't equate it with comfort, but being stable, because it takes a lot of hard work and it takes a constant balance. It's not about being conveniently comforted. It's about being able to do the work that builds an actual sense of stability. And when I maintain in that space, out of those things come all of these different ideas of like things that I can do that not only are pleasing to my deepest internal self, but also potentially benefiting everything else. If it's what is deep in my soul and what's in my heart, it's something I should do regardless of how other people are receiving it, right? Truly, I'm not the one in control of how other people receive their experience. I'm in control of how I receive and respond to my experience and what I do with that. And everybody else is free to do with theirs as they will. And that's how we come into a sense of personal power. If I'm constantly trying to sacrifice myself and compromise myself and do these things so that other people don't have to be offended or bothered or put into some type of compromising position, I'm just taking away their opportunity to learn for themselves what it is that they really want, what's really best for them, and how to engage with that. So ultimately, that isn't actually as caring and empathetic as I would like to trick myself into believing that it is. The best thing I can do is care for myself and show people how that's done so that then they can do the same things for themselves. And then they're able to set their boundaries that way too. So that's kind of what I see going on here. Hopefully that resonates on some personal level. I want so that's where we're starting off with, right? We've got the focus of caring for oneself, bringing in one's abundance, and it's out of that abundance that our highest self and our most like influential purpose and our most divine path comes. Is there any others to come out with the strength? The strength card in reverse just fell out, as well as the star in reverse. Which is funny because initially these would likely, so often reversals are perceived to be innately negative. And like I mentioned in my last video, like I'll do this thing where like I do actually take them in the negative, but then I immediately alchemize them. I use them as a script or as a platform in order to do that alchemy. But I don't think that's always sufficient. I think often they speak exactly for themselves and it's not a negative. Seeing the strength in reverse and the star in reverse in this way is reading to me as, so when I'm properly caring for myself and doing what comes from within my most core aspects, right? And what like is the most very personal to me, and then letting that come out. I don't have to fear the negativity of not being in my strength or not being seen the right way, right? Or how I'd like to be seen or in a bright light. I don't have to fear those things because I already trust that like if it's something that I'm supposed to be doing, if it really is what's truly best for me, then it's going to end up being best for everyone. Maybe the best thing for me isn't to be understood by everyone and respected by everyone and, appeasing everyone, and like there's something about that concept, that's why like I haven't always been in my Queen of Cups. I am now, but I haven't always been in my Queen of Cups, or I was in my Queen of Cups in reverse, where I had this concept of my value being determined on my capacity to be able to offer myself to others or to please others or to make sure that like everything was in balance that way. And that was my concept of community, right? And like cohesion with the collective was that, compromising myself is how I'm going to make sure that everybody's okay and everybody's happy, because I can still be happy even when I'm compromised. And if other people can't, then it makes more sense for me to compromise myself. That was always the way I looked at it. However, like I've just stated, I've learned over time that ultimately all that's doing is making an allowance for people not to have to do the work in of themselves to make sure that they are properly knowing themselves, receiving their experience of themselves, and then being able to express themselves truly in that way. It's making an allowance for people to be self-blinded, for people to be lazy, for people to be codependent, ultimately. And that isn't my end goal. I want to see people healed from these deep states of codependency and come into a point of being able to be truly independent and and then in their independence, be able to genuinely connect with the collective, and for community to be based off of self-sustaining individuals coming together for a greater good, rather than this concept of like, we have to have a leader telling us exactly what to do and they're the ones running everything and we just have to be obedient to it. That's ultimately not the best thing. When I worked at landscaping, our boss was incredible. We all respected him. We all listened to what he told us to do, even if it didn't make sense. However, he expected of each of us to be responsible for our own work, to be on top of our own skills, to know what it was that we were bringing to the table, to ask questions if we had any concerns. And that was how we all worked together. And that's also how each of us knew the other person's skill and, what could be offered in each way. And that's how we were building on the teams and were able to be efficient in getting these certain jobs done, was because we knew which individuals needed to be used for certain jobs. If everybody's just doing the same shit and just following the same rule, then you're just polling whoever. Everybody's just a number, everybody's just a name, everybody's just a pair of hands to do the work, and you're lacking that space for people to be able to hone in on their own creativity and their own individuality and their own personal skill. And ultimately, that's not sustainable. There's a reason that we have an entire conglomerate that is, what's it called? I keep forgetting words. That's built out of individuals with their own individual experiences, their own capacity to respond to and receive their experiences, their own individual concepts and beliefs. Like, the point of that isn't so that we can break that out of people. The point of that is so that we can benefit from that. The most sustainable thing would to be able to access those things, access those individuals' capacity to be able to be strengthened and empowered in of themselves, to be able to offer those individual aspects, and then to bring that together as a whole. It's like opening up a box with all of these bits and pieces and all of these different tools and not having a manual. Well, how are you going to figure out how this stuff works together into some functioning system? You can use it and build different things off of it. But unless you know what the intent of every single tool being put in that box was, you're not going to know how to build a singular, fully functioning, thing out of all of those pieces. And even if you do, unless it's exactly what it was meant to do, it's ultimately not going to be sustainable. So if you're missing the manual, or if you feel like you can't read the manual, the best thing that you can do is learn those individual pieces so that you can figure out exactly what they do, and then you can start putting it together that way over time, right? We're all in this process of trying to work these things out and figure out how we all work together and what the best option is. So there shouldn't be a fear in not feeling strong and not feeling like we're totally in control, or not feeling like, that's part of the process. It's okay to not be seen by everybody and not be fully recognized yet. Maybe one of the most important pieces of this whole entire puzzle is a seemingly insignificant piece that you just can't figure out how to put anywhere, and it just doesn't seem to fit. And then once you get all of these other pieces together, suddenly it falls into place. There's the only way you can know those things and know how to work those things out is by stepping far enough back and making space for all of those pieces to kind of speak for themselves. Otherwise, you're forcing pieces into places that they don't properly position. So there's nothing wrong with that. And on a very personal level, something that is so deep within me, and this drive that I have, and the thing I want to do with my life, the things I want to do, but this idea that I have that's bubbling up out of me, is to be able to be humble and to be submissive and to be vulnerable and to be willing to be broken down and to be willing to be taken advantage of and to be willing to take on the things in an individual that they don't fully understand themselves, and to offer in exchange what I have learned in a gentle, loving, caring, intimate, deeply intimate way in order to teach those things and in order to uplift those that have been damning themselves for so long with all of this negativity. Like, you don't have to hide your negativity with me. You don't have to hide your monstrous ways with me. You can expose those things to me. I can fully take those things on, and I will still love you for it, and I will show you love afterwards, and I will help you learn how to love yourself so that you are no longer identifying yourself by these things that you refuse to even fully accept. That's why people are so lost nowadays, right? And like, granted, the ways I'm coming up with going about this may not be traditional. I think that they are traditional. I think that it's just not something that's been actively spoken of in our society necessarily. To me, it is old-fashioned things, but like taking it maybe in a different way. It's not about that, though. It's not about if it fits the standard that already exists, because we're well aware this standard that already exists is like not fitting for the wholeness of who we are as individuals and as a collective. So like, why would I continue to try to cater to that? I have deep issues with it. Why would I continue to try to cater to that? I'm not going to. I'm going to do this other thing, and people can feel about it what they will. I'm just figuring out how to even make it happen, because I don't even know the first thing in making it happen. And I'm being very vague right now for a reason, because nobody needs to know what I'm doing until it's already done. Okay? So just be happy that you get into any of my business, but mind your own business. Worry about your own business. This is just to help you to do so. A friendly reminder that you don't need other people's validation in order to do what you feel you are called to do. I'm leaving it to you. I would prefer it. I don't know. I'm leaving it up to the universe. I do need one more card. Okay. What I'm being told is to take these, to put this deck down. This is strange, but okay, so I have these cards like this. I have this one that came out face up, this one that came out face down, and then a card would not come out of this third deck. I broke the deck into thirds for some reason and then pulled out of those. This third one won't come out, and what it's telling me is just to pull right off the top, to pull one off the top and off the bottom. Okay. Took me a second to read that, sorry. Okay. So what I have is 2 cards face up and 2 cards face down as the clarifiers. The cards, the way that they came face up is, face up is the Ace of Pentacles in the upright and the Knight of, Cups in the reverse. And they came on top of each other like this. Okay. So reading that to begin with, it's like I was just saying, like, you don't have to give the love that everybody seems to be waiting for. People don't even know what they want. You cannot trust people that don't know themselves. They're generally the first to express need. They're generally the first to, but like what their need is expressing is like, I can't do this. I don't know what to do. Do it for me. And that's not helpful. You know, I remember my boss, like in the landscaping job, when I didn't know how to do something, he didn't just do it for me. Unless it was something he didn't think I could do, he was not going to do it for me. He was going to explain how it needed to be done, and then he was going to walk me through it, and he made me do it. He didn't, and I'm such like a visual learner, and I also learn like if somebody else does it, I can watch them do it, and then I know how to do it much better. He wasn't having it. He's like, no, put your hands on the actual thing, put your body into the actual thing, and I'm going to explain what to be done as you're doing it. Which was terrifying because like, what if I make a mistake and fuck everything up? What if I like, you know, that wasn't his concern though. His concern was you're not going to do that because I'm putting you in such an uncomfortable and vulnerable position that you're going to be paying keen attention to everything because you don't even know what you're doing. Which was weird, and I didn't agree with it at first, and it was frustrating, but at the same time it was also exciting because I was like, okay. But also it forced me to trust him in ways that like I don't know if I'd ever actually trusted anybody that way before, really. I knew that if he was having me do something that I had never done before, he already knew how it was going to be done. So I like fully was trusting him, like, okay, give me whatever information. And it forced me also to communicate my needs better. I didn't just, you know, I remember trying one time where I was like so frustrated and he was sitting there watching me do this thing that I could not for the life of me figure out. And I was all embarrassed because he was watching me and it was making me feel really insecure and like I couldn't figure it out. And I was like, I know that he knows how to do it and it's probably something so simple and I'm sitting here making an absolute fool of myself and he's just watching me do it. And I was like so frustrated about it. And, you know, at one point, like he saw my frustration and he was like, don't get frustrated. Look at it differently. Take a step back, try to figure out what it is that you're not doing right. Try to consider what you already know and apply it. You know, there's something that you're missing and it is very simple. Like, give yourself a chance. Don't just expect me to do it. I'm not going to touch that machine. I'm not coming over there and doing it. You need to do it. You can figure it out. You already know how to do it. You just need to trust yourself and to actually do that. And it was so awkward, but like at the same time, like, and so like, and then he ended up like, I mean, it took me a really long time. And he's like, okay, here's a hint. And at that point I was like, oh my God, okay, I totally get it. And then I was able to do the thing. And then he was like, okay. And I said, well, I wouldn't have been able to do that if you weren't here. And he's like, well, then I'm glad that I was here, but now you do know how to do it. So there's no excuses. And it was like, okay, you're right. That is so powerful. I will forever carry with me the ways that boss taught me how to do the work that I was doing. That was work I had never done before. And just his leadership skills were so insanely impressive and to me and like touched me in such an intimate way. Because I you know, he was ex-military and so that's where he learned a lot of those things. But he also just like was very much like me, where like he had applied himself into all of these different types of things in order to learn these things, and he took those things very seriously, and then he applied them, and like it just was extremely powerful to me, extremely powerful to see those things and to experience that, and to, you know, at the end of the day and like at the end of the summer when I'd already been working there for months, like him and the higher boss were like both extremely satisfied with the work that I had done. And I would not have been able to maintain that and do that same way and so impressively had it not been for his teaching. And so I've carried that with me too, where I realized like, you know, the way now I'm very different from that boss was personality wise, that I go about things in a very different way. But at the same time, like those were important lessons. And like, it's not about catering to somebody's emotions or coming and being this knight on a white horse, coming to save them, coming to give them all the love that they've always been looking for. Here's your savior. Well, it's in the reverse. because you don't need a savior. You need to save yourself. You're not even as lost as you tend to tell yourself that you are. You know, that's the thing that will kill you. That's the thing that breaks you down in the first place, is convincing yourself that you don't have what it takes. There's nothing in your personal experience that is beyond your personal engagement. That's why it's yours. Your life is yours. Your path is yours. We just have this really crazy tendency to tell ourselves, like, I'm not good enough for even my own life. You know, I'm not good enough for what it is that is being expected of me and of my own self. Like, we delude ourselves, and that's a tendency we have. We have this codependency, you know, on these things, and it causes this disillusionment of our own power to ourselves. We are our own knight on our own white horse with our own cup to offer our own selves. We just don't always look at it that way. And so, you know, this is reflective too. We have a divine abundance, and like, that's the mark that, like, divine abundance is going to come through removing that codependency from ourselves. We're not going to receive divine abundance from somebody else. That isn't divine abundance. I don't care if the Illuminati comes to you and tries to get you to sell your soul and is willing to give you multi-millions for it. That isn't divine abundance. Even if it's going to afford you all the things that you think that you need, that you want, that are going to make your life better, that are going to make you able to help everybody else, that's not divine abundance, because it's not coming from within you. And as long as you're looking for a savior that way, you will sell your soul to things that don't ultimately serve your highest abundance. Ultimately, if that's what happens, and you believe, if you convince yourself that somebody else giving you an offer is what's going to give you what you've always been looking for, you are going to sign your life over. You're going to sign your soul over, your creative aspect, your capacity to be free, to do what you will with what you have, your freedom to live your life as you truly see fit. You are going to have somebody lording over you with their standards, their opinions, their expectations, and you're going to be expected to meet those things because you signed a contract. That's not divine abundance. I don't care how much they're paying you for it. You're worth more than that. I don't care how much they are offering, what they are trying to give you, you are worth more than that. And I don't care how many of them all do that. Yeah, but we have this person and this person and this person that are all involved with it. That's sad. I'm sorry for you guys. Or good for you. If that makes you happy, if that's what's satisfying you, by all means. I'm not here to judge it. I just know that I'm worth more than that. You're not going to take away my freedom and my security of self. You're not going to sit here and try to convince me that my power is in something outside of me, that I need what it is that you're offering in order to be powerful, that my success is going to come off of you riding my back. Like, no, I'm not playing that game. That is not our divine abundance. Our divine abundance comes from within us, and comes from that Queen of Cups. That isn't the Empress at the beginning of this of the read. That isn't the Empress. That isn't the King of Cups. It's an assurance of self. That is of the utmost importance in order to move into all of these other things. You know, it took embracing opportunity despite the uncertainty, based on knowing that we have what we need to provide for ourselves, that we are comfortable with ourselves, that we love ourselves, that we care for ourselves, that we can give those things to ourselves. And as long as we can provide those things for ourselves, we will be able to move into a place of abundance in the King of Pentacles in order to be able to offer that to our own, to those that are part of our circle, or to our, you know, those things that come after us. And that state of being confident in that way comes through not needing to be in control of everything, and the balance of that, and not having to be recognized for what it is that you've done and who you are and where, you know. I had this dream last night, and I have these dreams a lot. I have dreams that I'm levitating. I know how to levitate very easily in my dreams. all the time. I can fly very high. I can fly around. I can do all these tricks. I can do all these different things. I'm extremely powerful in my dreams, okay? But I have these dreams often where I'm levitating and people are just like, cool. Like, nobody cares. Nobody cares. And it always is frustrating to me. And I like wake up being like, okay, I don't care if people see me levitating. It's not about me levitating. I'm doing it to show people that it can be done. I don't get why everybody isn't levitating in my dreams. That's the frustration, because everybody's, and like the reason they're not levitating is because they don't think it's cool. They're not impressed with it. They don't really see the point of it or what the benefit would be. They don't understand the power that I'm trying to show them. And so that's always frustrating for me. And last night in my dream, it was like all these kids from middle school. And this one girl in particular was like, well, yeah, but you're only, because I kept showing her like, look, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. And I kept doing it from all these different positions. And like when we were like going up the stairs, when we were doing these different things, and I was kind of like fucking around with it, like trying to show all these different ways that you can do it. And she was like, yeah, but that's just because you're always kind of in that position to begin with. You know, like physically, you're always in a position where it makes it easier for you to levitate. And I remember being like waking up and feeling like that's so, like that is people's perception, I think, of it. And that's the opposite of what the case is. But that's largely in part because I've always been in my strength and in my star qualities, where like people just put me up on some weird pedestal, like, oh, well, you have some privilege to be able to access those things because, look, you're like more comfortable with yourself and confident with yourself than I am. Or you've been able to overcome these things that I haven't been able to. Or you happen to know this person or that person or have been in this industry or done that thing. And they view that as the reason that I'm able to do the things that I do, not realizing that long before they recognized me as those things, or before I recognized myself as those things, I wasn't those things. I wasn't in those places. I didn't have those things. I was no different than anybody else. In fact, I was worse off than a lot of people. And I don't have, it's not like I've taken those things as a blessing. That's what's given me that power. The difference is that people that haven't been through so much look at that and then are like, well, yeah, but like, you know, you've had to go through so much just to survive. Like I haven't had to do any, I haven't had to have any. People just love to feel bad about themselves. And like what I'm seeing like in this read is that like not being in your power, not being in the limelight or the, you know, spotlight, is in of itself its own spotlight and its own power. And, you know, there's really no, this is why it isn't about how other people receive it. The next time I levitate, I should just be doing it so that I can do what I'm doing. Half the time I'm doing it just to show people it can be done. And nobody's receiving that. If I just start using it to do as I will with it, to like actually apply it, like people are like, yeah, but why would I be levitating so I could be floating around at this wedding party? That's not helpful. It's like, okay, fair. Because I had a dream one time where I was levitating and I saw this one dude and his wife, and they were like mocking me about it. And the one dude I know to be like powerful himself, especially in the occult. And so like in the dream, he like, in his making fun of me, like he said something in particular that like made me like flip upside down and my skirt flew up and everybody saw my underwear. And so then that was like a little like way of him feeling like, you know, better than me. Like, yeah, you might be levitating, but you're also making a fool of yourself, right? And like, okay, so like humility is essential. You know, what you see in the strength card, which I already put away, but like what you see in the strength card is a humble seeming woman and the lion, but the lion like isn't ferocious and scary, not in this deck. He's like being very submissive, and it's this reflection of like your calmness, your peace, your generosity, your lovingness is what also eases the beast into that position. And that's technically what I'm doing. I mean, that really is like my end goal, career-wise. But seeing it in the reverse and seeing the star in the reverse is that a reminder that like that shouldn't be the focus, though. The focus should be on doing what is best for me, knowing that that is going to overflow into all of these other forms of abundance, right? Because, like, if as my own white knight, I'm doing what's best for me, then I'd be in the upright. But in the reverse, it's like the sense of, like, you're waiting on a savior, or you're trying to save other people. Like, you're not really focused in your own power. And that causes the separation between the abundance, you know, where, like, you really need to be able to, being in the reverse, like, alchemize that into the point where it's like, you know what, I'm not going to be codependent, and I'm also not going to validate other people's codependency on me. You know, I need people to also grow up the same way I've been forced to grow up, because I don't deserve to be on any pedestals. Any pedestal you could put me on is something you are recognizing that you are recognizing in me because you feel that you don't have it in yourself. That's why you're putting me on a pedestal about it. But if you realized that you actually have just as much capacity, if not more, I am like the baseline for anything you could possibly imagine. So, like, if you really see me in those lights, it's only because you're not seeing yourself in that light. You know, the spotlight isn't on me. You're putting the spotlight on me because you'd rather be in the limelight, when the truth of the matter is that we are all in our own spotlights of life. We are all our own stars. You know, it's not about having all of the other stars see you. All of the other stars are also their own stars. In the star card, the only reason that that one is yellow and seemingly, and right in the center and seemingly brighter than all the other ones, is because it's closer. The closer you are to your own self, the more that you will recognize your light as the guiding light. It's only when you're far away from your actual self and trying to be close to other people, other concepts, other powers outside of yourself, that you convince yourself that your light is smaller and less significant. These are all stars. And it just depends on how close you are. All these stars have their own planets revolving around them. They're in their own galaxies. Like, you matter, but you have to know that, and you have to stop being codependent otherwise. And you can't be so arrogant in your mattering that you know, are now trying to give it to everybody else because this is how you're going to matter. When, like, if people aren't willing and ready to receive that, you can't force that on them, you know. So there's this balance. Okay, now I have these two cards that came out as clarifiers for the Ace of Pentacles. I have the Knight of Wands in the upright. And for the Knight of Cups in the reverse, I have the Chariot in the upright. So in correlation with the two, I see the abundance, true divine abundance, coming from being able to move forward in an assurance of one's own personal skill, belief, thought process, and emotionality. Being able to, he has the lizard Ouroboros all over his little robe thing, and it's all torn and tattered too, because it's over his, it's torn and tattered, where, like, the Knight of Cups isn't. The Knight of Cups is coming in on a white horse, and he has this shiny brand new armor like he's never seen shit, right? But the real savior, the real thing that's going to lead us into abundance, because, like, the way that these are set too is that the Knight of Wands is moving into divine abundance. The way that we're going to receive those things is, you know, by dirtying ourselves up, is by doing the actual work. You know, the Knight of Cups horse is kind of walking in all pleasant, where the Knight of Wands horse is, like, practically on fire, moving forward, very direct. It's embracing one's own confidence in one's own belief system, and one's own skill, and one's own personal sense of self in order to move into that. Being able to embrace the cycles that one has gone through in their lives, that have, and all of the education that they've received from that, all of the wisdom that they've gained in order to move forward. That's the ultimate way into this abundance. And this card of codependency has the Chariot. where it's like, again, like you're not waiting on a savior or something external. You're also not rushing in to save somebody else. There isn't this, do I have it on here? No. There isn't this cup being offered that way. That's not the way that the cup comes. How it actually comes, the Chariot is a card of movement, even more so than the Knight of Cups. But the Chariot isn't bringing in just this cup of fulfillment. It's bringing in all of this like esoteric wisdom, esoteric being hidden, esoteric being brought out of the gnosis of experience. All of these different symbols, you know, there's moons, there's stars, there's suns, there's like the Star of David's, there's these winged, what do you call that? Like not amulet, but like I can't think of it. It's like a disc. It's the word for it, like the Egyptian hieroglyphs when they have discs, like what that's called. I can't think of what it's called. There's a top on this banner. Like this is like, so you have like the wings here with the, I can't think of what you would call that. And then there's this like badge underneath it, and on that badge is a top, a spinning top. You have the right and the left paradigm. You have the positive and the negative, the light and the dark. There's a kinghood in the balance between those things. Both the light and the dark are both pharaohs. You know, they're both emperors. They're both in their highest power that way. But there's also a balance. The Sphinx, they're a balance between the beast of man, and they're the strength card in like its cohesion of itself. You know, like the strength card actually depicts a sense of duality and being able to balance out a sense of control over what was perceived to be negative or was perceived to be like dangerous, where the Sphinx is kind of a full embracing of those qualities into oneself in order to make oneself, and like it's a weird thing to look at. It's a mysterious beast, but it is a depiction of pure power within a evolved being. All of these different concepts are reflective of having gone through things, not expecting somebody else to come in on their white horse and to just give you all the love that you're looking for. You going out and searching for it yourself to figure out what it means, to figure out what it really is, what it really means to you. The spinning of the top is almost like this like concept of chance, that you're taking the chance, that like there's like, you know, like what's it called, gambling, like there's a gamble there, but the, you know, it almost is like a hierophant in here. Like this person is like extremely confident. They have a world of knowledge and experience that they're working with. They have a square right on their chest plate, on their chest piece, on their breastplate. Just a perfect square, which is a sign of everything coming together, an accumulation, completion of cycles, and a capacity to be able to be confident moving forward. So there's all of these different, the Chariot card is crazy because there's all of these different symbols, and they're all symbolizing this balance. Like even like the stars, the star on their crown is the star that's in the Aquarius card, the actual star card. But the stars, I know it's hard to see on this camera, the stars that are on the banners on their Chariot are the Star of David's, you know, which is this concept of as above, so below. Everything has this innate balance in it. They have all of these hieroglyphs, which are depicting their, what's it called? Their runes. Is that Nordic? They have runes, but then they also have these other symbols on their belt. So they have runes on their skirt, which are, you know, pagan in tradition and kind of speak of like not prehistoric, kind of pre-civilization belief systems. But then the belt that they have has like nautical type symbology, which is depictive of like long running. Like we use the same nautical symbols for kind of for knowing what you're doing when you're out on a ship on the water. We have used the same thing like with a compass. We've essentially used the same tools since we first learned how to do those things, since we first learned how to use the stars, use where the sun is placed, use these different things in order to know what direction we are on the water. So there is so many deep, deep concepts in this card. And these are all things that have been learned by the individual. These are all encompassed within the individual. This knight is relying on his fancy, shiny new armor, on his bright, clean, white horse that's very well trained as they move into this comfortable space. He has a cup that he's giving that's like, you know, that's the gift that he has. Those things are all external. That's in this reading, like, it's supposed to be trying to depict that, like, these things that are outside of yourself that you think it is that you have to give are actually distracting you from the real gifts that you have to give, which are in your personal experience and your alchemizing of those things, and your capacity to move forward with what you've learned through all of those cycles, and to be able to trust your skills to move into your own divine abundance, which again isn't something that's coming from other people coming and bringing it to you. The top is also depictive to me, like when I first saw it and thought of it, is this concept of, okay, so when you spin a top, it spins for a time and then it stops. That's the point. And like, it's kind of like a countdown. Like it's, what are those things called? Those things with sand in them. I can't think of it. 2 glass pieces with sand. And you turn it upside down in order to measure time. I don't know what's going on with my brain today because I've been having a really hard time figuring out words like that I know very well. Don't know why I can't think of what the fuck that thing is called right now. But I digress. That's what a top is like. It's a measurement of time. And so with it being the forefront of this banner of the Chariot, it's also this concept that like everything has a time and place, and things only exist for a time in a specific place. And you know, there's a certain thing that a top does where like you can get it spinning perfectly and it can keep up that way for an extended period of time. But once it starts to wobble, you can assure that that's when it's starting to slow down and that's when it's eventually going to stop. So there's also this sense of like it's standing perfectly straight up. So it's kind of like the beginning of a cycle. It's kind of like already in its cycle, in its spinning. It's stable at this point in time. And so, you know, it's about being able to know yourself enough to know how to get your top spinning and, you know, when to make your movements, sort of deal too, you know. And it's not just about knowing yourself and being confident with yourself like we had with the Queen of Cups. If that's all it was about, that would have been the only card I pulled out for this reading. I pulled out 2 cards for the reading yesterday, so apparently anything, you know, but that wasn't the point. The point was to also come down where like this Chariot is the last card that we've turned over, and it is reflective of being able to recognize a time and place, not just to know oneself, but to know one's position in one's reality, right? In order to know when to make these best moves. If you learn fencing, if you learn fighting, if you learn any sort of like wrestling tactics or any sort of karate or anything like that, martial arts. Like, it's not just about being able to build on one's own personal skill based off of what one has to work with, but it's also about knowing this time and place, this proper time and place to do the right things when those right moves are needed and necessary. You know, so like I said, like if you end up getting approached by people trying to offer you what they are doing a very good job of making seem like it must just be the end all be all. And even if you've convinced yourself that that would be something truly beneficial, be willing to deny those things if they ultimately aren't reflective of your highest, most divine abundance. If you start to notice that those things start to feel slightly codependent, well, you know, we'll give you all of the power that you could ever ask for. We'll do that for you. Unless you do this, you're not going to have that power. Unless you have these things, you're not going to have that influence. Unless you fit this mold, you're not going to be successful. Be very cautious with people that communicate things to you that way, because you can pretty much bet on the fact that they're just trying to harness your power for their own. If somebody really had power over you, they wouldn't have to ask you for it. They wouldn't have to convince you to give it up. You wouldn't have to trade anything or offer anything for it. So just know yourself. It does ultimately come down to knowing yourself, like the Queen of Cups, to knowing what it is that you have to offer, to being able to wade through your own emotions, to be able to recognize yourself. But all of these other cards have really been definitive as well of how to do that. Like I said, if you are in your strength in the upright, and you have this balance between your light and darkness, and between these two extremes, and between the physical and the internal, and between, you know, what you fear and the power that you have within yourself, and can find a pleasant balance with that, that can itself even be disillusioning, because there isn't that integrated balance that we see here in the Chariot card, because you're still looking at it like, I have the things that are bad about me, or the things that are negative, or the things that people judge as dangerous, and then I have this nice, sweet, loving, caring other aspect, and I'm balancing them, you know, but until they are fully integrated, it isn't actually, it's a strength, but it isn't the ultimate. In this reading, that's what it's depicted of. Sometimes the Strength card is purely positive, but in this card, it came in the reverse, and it was supposed to be reflective of the fact that, like, you know, in my own personal experience and what I'm trying to do with my career, there's so many fears and concerns that I'm trying to work out that, like, yeah, but what if this is, like, the wrong thing to do? Like, what if it actually makes people worse off? Like, that is not something I need to consider. That's not my responsibility. If it is what is truly best for me, if it's the best use of my skills, if it's something that is serving me on a deep soul level, and it's the highest form of that I can reach at this point in time, it is what I'm supposed to be doing. That is the direction I'm supposed to be heading. And it is not up for me how other people choose to receive that. I mean, my fear isn't even like, is it going to take off? I already know that there is a success there. But that's also why the Star card was in the reverse as well. Because it doesn't matter if you can guarantee success, and it doesn't matter if you can guarantee influence, if you can guarantee that you're going to get a bunch of followers, that you're going to get all this money for it, that there's going to be a balance between those things. Because those things can also be disillusioning to who you are truly as a person. You can maintain that concept, right? But there's all of these other aspects that go into what actually creates the balance. And the Star card, the star is not the star itself, but the woman pouring out the of the cups and creating that balance underneath the star is naked. In the Chariot card, this person is fully decked out in everything that they have experienced. So the Star card is kind of this trusting that, you know, everything's working out for good, and that, like, you've already been promised this sense of assurance. Those things can be misleading because, like I said, like, that's the same type of energy that'll get you signing on to contracts that don't serve you. You know, well, we can guarantee success. We can guarantee influence. You'll be famous. You'll have millions. You'll be able to buy your own multiple houses. You'll have all of these different cars. You can interact with any of these celebrities that you want to. Will fly you out all across the world, wherever you want to go, whenever you want to be there. And as long as you are wearing the things we tell you to wear, saying the things we tell you to say, and interacting with certain people the ways that we tell you to, then all of this will be yours. It seems like such a simple sacrifice, and so many people are given to that. But like I keep telling you, that isn't your actual divine abundance. That is the selling of your soul. And if your soul isn't worth anything to you, well, I imagine that's just because you don't know yourself. I imagine that's because you're seeing other people flying around, and you're like, yeah, but you're already in a position to have that, and I'm not. You know, this is like, I know it's been a long read, but like, that's also why I have these feelings that I do about transhumanism that I've brought up in my theories of everything. Because I think that we tend to be given to these negative concepts of self that allow us to feel like what we can create out of ourselves that we have deemed more efficient and thus sufficient is better than who we are truly at a core. Like, we've convinced ourselves that becoming bionic, integrating ourselves with these higher technologies that we ourselves have developed, mind you, that, you know, becoming part computer, that using these technologies, these external resources in order to better ourselves is what's going to help us attain our highest power. When, how is that not just a deflection of self? How is that not just saying it's something outside of that codependency in the Knight of Cups in the reverse? How is that not just being codependent on something outside of ourselves for a sense of validation within ourselves? And how is that sustainable? Like, okay, so we can build self-sustaining technology that is able to replicate itself enough that it'll end up just taking over, and then we won't need humans anymore because we have the things that humans are leaving behind, which is a self-replicating technology. That's the opposite of sustainability. We can create that if we want, and it can be its own thing, but doing it at our own expense is not true sustainability, and it's also not survival, which is like all that there is. There's experience and there's survival for the point of experience. If you are a robot, you don't have the human experience any longer. You're experiencing an artificial intelligent experience. An artificial experience, you know, where I personally believe that's why I keep dreaming about levitating. I personally believe that we, just like the X-Men, we have so many powers beyond our own sense of reason. But we tend to be so logical and reasonable that we deny those powers in replacement or in like trade for these external concepts of validation. You know, no, we can't levitate ourselves and just be flying around. We need to have a certain technology that makes that allowance for us. And as long as we continue to put our energy into those ways, we're actively taking away from the energy that we would have to be able to put into ourselves. Again, this is why I warn people about selling your souls into certain contracts. Because when you are being told you need to do this thing at this time in this place and be here and do this thing, I've seen it with every single one of my friends that's in any industry. The second that you're being told what's expected of you as a creator, you start to lose your creative power. Now it just becomes a habit. Now it just becomes part of this thing. Now you have to keep saying the same thing over and over again, reiterating the same sorts of things. I do that. It comes out of me naturally, okay? There's nothing innately wrong with that. But if what your soul and spirit are begging for is to move in a totally different direction, but you've already been set up as this celebrity that's known for this thing, you will have managers and financiers and people over you telling you you can't do that, because you're going to end up losing followers. You're going to end up losing influence. You can't do that because our success is determined by your success, and your success has already been defined as this very specific thing that we preset for you. Where do you lie in that? Where is your personal power in that? If you're giving up your personal power for what somebody else has deemed success, I need you to question if that's true success to you, and if that's true happiness to you, and if you're really content with that, and if you really feel like you can be confident in yourself in that position. If you can, by all means. I'm not here to judge what people do with their lives. But if you can't, I would suggest that you try to reconsider, because you don't deserve to be somebody else's slave, to make somebody else powerful at your own expense, just to maintain some standard of success that is truly unsustainable. That's not helping anybody in the end. It's not helping anybody in the end. And you don't even have to want to help people. If all you want to do is help yourself, again, consider, is that really helping you? Is that really helping you? If not, I don't know if it's necessarily the best thing. But of course, that's my personal opinion. That's the way I command myself, and the reasons why. And yeah, I just hope that you make the right choices for yourself, and that you don't fall for these systems of control that are trying to get you to sell yourself to them, just so that they can continue to be in power. They don't need power, and if they have to take your power in order to be in power, they're not that powerful. You are. So just remember that. All right. Have fun, and I will see you in the next read.